Let's do it. Welcome, everybody. This is the fourth BigBlueButton World Conference. My name is Fred Dixon. I wear two hats. I am the product manager of BigBlueButton. I co-founded the project back in 2017, and I'm also the CEO of Blindside Networks, the main company behind the BigBlueButton project. And we have been working on it for 14, 15 years now. And really happy to share the updates that we've had. It's been a really intense last year, or past 12 months, as we gear up for the next version of our product. So let's dive in, and feel free to ask me any questions in the chat as we go along. So we'll start off with a little bit about BigBlueButton. And I did this in the chat, but here, let's try using it as a poll. For those here, just give me your interest. Which are you? Closest thing you can do, head of online learning, could be administration. Developer could be on anything, administrator, you work with the administrators. Okay. Cool. So I'm going to publish some of the responses. Most of us here are developers, but there's others as well. We have a global community, diverse community, which I'll touch on. All right, so about BigBlueButton. If you came up to me in the hallway at a conference or at a developer summit and said, Fred, what is BigBlueButton? The first thing I would say is, well, it's not a video conferencing system. I would say BigBlueButton is a virtual classroom designed to increase learning outcomes for every student. And then if you ask me, well, how does it do that? I would give you a slightly longer version where I would say BigBlueButton is a virtual classroom that provides built-in tools for active learning and live analytics to increase learning outcomes for every student. Those built-in tools, active learning, how our brain works, and live analytics allow you to give feedback in the moment so you can see who's struggling. These are the foundations of our product. And what a journey we've been on. So we are, of course, an open source project for the win. It started in 2007, thanks to Richard Alam at Carleton University. Since that first commit that we did to GitHub, we have done over 42,000 commits. There have been, and it's contributed by over 150 developers worldwide. Thanks to the global community, BigBlueButton is localized. If you count the localizations, over 60 languages. And with my Blindside Networks hat on, we have at least done billions. We have done over 2 billion minutes worldwide of virtual classes. That's just us. There are many people around the world who have done BigBlueButton. And that has been used many times for many millions. And I think there's probably a few billions out there. And this was a picture not too long ago, but 2 months at our 19th Developer Summit in Brazil, hosted by IMDT. And many of the core developers got together, some folks from Germany. It was awesome. All right, I want to share with you some examples of the use of BigBlueButton around the world. So first off, the French Ministry of Education. The country of France uses us as their state webinar system. They also use us in the K-12 and higher ed, and they have been contributing financially to improving BigBlueButton. So big shout out to them, big usage of it. And this, of course, is because they care a lot about digital sovereignty. So everything runs in France, and data privacy. None of their data is going anywhere except to their servers, and they were able to do that with BigBlueButton. With my Blindside Networks hat on, one of our customers, Cell Schools in the United States, we have done over 320,000 virtual classes for them in the last 12 months alone. So this is huge use of BigBlueButton. Another example, this is UK, Minerva Virtual Academy. They are a complete online school. They use BigBlueButton. Again, with my Blindside Networks hat on, we've done over 500,000 virtual classes or minutes for virtual classes. They're an award-winning school that teaches using BigBlueButton online. The United States Air Force uses us on GovCloud One. That's with Moodle Workplace. Another UK company, Activate Learning, they use us along with Canvas. And this quote that we are publishing in Success Story, students taking the online class in BigBlueButton have achieved a full grade point higher than equivalent in-person classes. So that is evidence-based learning. That is them looking at same material, two different contexts, and in BigBlueButton, they're able to achieve a full grade point higher. They do that because of their methodology and the way they approach it. We are the supporting actor, but we are one that is really focused on teaching and learning, and they're using us to deliver. And this one, it was for fun. I learned about this a couple days ago. This is a website that just popped up for tutoring called Fun Class. And yeah, you may see something familiar in there. They layered a few things on top of us. And that was just always great to see other people designing BigBlueButton in. A design win is a win for the whole community. And I mentioned we have integrations. Moodle, total integration with Moodle, built into the core. Canvas, total integration built into the core. Schoology built into the core. Genzabar built into the core. These are in the code base implementations. We also support LTI as well, and a lot of work has gone on for LTI 1.3. There's a talk tomorrow about that. And we have other LMSs which we support, and there's actually quite a few more. All right, so I have talked about BigBlueButton as our goal to create a virtual classroom that increases learning outcomes for every student, which means that the class was effective in its goal. No one's showing up to class for just putting in time. People show up to learn. So there's a difference between a meeting and a learn. So I want to talk about BigBlueButton, the roadmap, but I always want to ground us in pedagogy first. So we live in a world where virtual classes are now mainstream. Thanks to COVID, that is the case. And virtual classes have evolved. And for those of you that are older, you might have watched a class on broadcast TV, woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning when it was a little bit later. It was cheaper for the schools to broadcast. The learning management systems started to appear on the 2000s, Moodle, of course, and others. The virtual classes that were taught were largely video-centric. You had like GoToMeeting and WebEx and Placeware. And then you had this really amazing time where everything went online, ready or not, here it comes. And that was a lot of mostly using video. And I believe the future is pedagogic. So we have adopted technology and thought that this is how we improve learning, and really it just washes up against the shore of our gray matter. And we have to think in terms of like, well, how does our brain actually work? If there was any stronger evidence that the way that video conferencing was used for teaching was not yielding outcomes, it's this. So this is the National Center for Education Statistics, and this is their results of the sort of like countrywide United States for reading and math, and the score. It's called the Nation's Report Card, and it turned out that during COVID, the scores actually dropped back down to 19 levels in 1971. The main reason was a lot of those classes, nobody shared their webcam, nobody spoke, the teacher taught the screen, and it was basically passive learning. Passive learning does not work. That is the proof. Okay, so the nut of what we're doing is really in this diagram, and it is the video conferencing has no idea what is going on. It is just sharing bits on the screen. The features that are in there are designed to help you meet, but that's not what we want to do in a virtual classroom. The goal is to learn. And to learn, you need to do active learning. You just can't be passive. That's what the previous slide talked or showed. And active learning way outpaces passive learning in terms of measurement of results, which is learning outcomes. So there was a really great study done at Harvard. In 2019, they took the second year physics students with 2 teachers, world class, and on the 10th week, they broke them into 2 groups. And what they did was in group 1, they gave the material as a lecture. So world-class teacher, poetry in motion, showed the content and solved some problems. And in the second group, very little minimalist introduction, but they mostly spent their time working on problems and getting some help. So after a week, they switched these random groups back to the different style and run it for a week. And then after those 2 weeks, they asked the groups basically questions that netted out to this. What method do you feel like you learned more? So I'm going to ask everybody here, was it the group that took the lecture, felt they learned more, or was it the group that actually worked on problems? Which group do you feel like felt they learned more? Okay, so it turns out most of you are wrong. So most of you think that the group that worked on the problems felt they learned more. It turned out that the people that thought they learned more were the ones that attended the lecture. and watched somebody solve the problems, poetry in motion, and the people that actually worked on the problems struggled. They're like, why is this so hard? I'm not getting this. They didn't feel like they learned. Okay, so then they gave a second question, and they actually had the students assess themselves, or they assessed the students and gave them to work on problems. So which group do you feel, or do you think actually was better at solving problems? Was it the group that watched somebody do it, or was it the group that actually spent time working on problems? Okay, so yes, you all got it, 100%. It is the group that actually did the problems, actually were able to solve the problems. Who'd have thought, right? So the message here is that it's not just technology. Students should need to realize that they are going to feel uncomfortable. They're going to struggle as they work on something. We've all done it, writing something, solving a problem, doing some math, but that is how we learn. And if you take away that effort, you are not learning. That's the passive. That's what passive learning was, is just watching somebody do the problems, but you didn't really retain it, right? We can only retain so much in our brains as we go. Okay, so what does pedagogy tell us? Can anybody tell me what this diagram is? I'll give you a few seconds. If anybody can tell me what learning theory is behind this diagram, just type it in the chat. Mary Beth, you get a free version of BigBlueButton. Joni, you do too. This is Bloom's taxonomy, but I like to write it this way as a staircase because you actually have to climb it. And what it shows is that you cannot reach mastery, to be able to create new knowledge without going through the efforts of applying what you're learning, stepping back and assessing the results, and then evaluating whether it was good or not. And this is the loop that we do. This is the higher order learning that we go through. If you just memorize and tell things apart, you don't get there. So a lot of our experience working with teachers is there's a structure to an effective class. So you have some time at the beginning building up relationships. Why is that important? Students need to feel comfortable making mistakes and struggling in front of each other. It's so important to get feedback, but you have to be willing to make mistakes. So there's some warm up at the beginning. You review and preview what's next. You do the main segment I'll talk about in a moment. You'd sort of do the review of what's been done and then summarize next steps. So here, all of these should just be scaffolding for learning. This should be active learning activities. And what you want is to get to this cycle where you do an activity, a student applies themselves, there's some effort, some struggle, you give them feedback and they reach a higher level of understanding. The cycle that you want students to realize is the more I apply myself, the faster I learn, okay? And these are the student activities and these are the instructor activities. But the student activities, there's a range of efficiency for learning. So there's another theory, Zavosky's zone of proximal development, which says at the lower end, we all can do things by ourselves, but the actual highest quality learning occurs at the upper end of our ability, and they can only get there with assistance from others. And that is social constructivism. That is learning by learning with others. That's the foundation for Moodle. And so you want, as an instructor, is to get students into that range as much as possible during your class. So it is now and only now do we talk about the features of the product in the context of what is it makes for an effective learning. So things like multi-user whiteboard I've already done, smart slides I did, polling, I've already used these capabilities. We have shared notes, reaction breakout rooms. All of these activities enable the student to apply effort. That effort in many cases generate analytics, and those analytics are visible to the instructor. This is what we do. So the instructor can see who's struggling in the moment and give them help. That is how BigBlueButton is different than a video conferencing system. So some visuals for those, if they're watching this, may not be fully aware of BigBlueButton. We have multi-user whiteboard, which you can draw together. It's really cool. What's even more cool, you as the educator can turn off the ability for students to see each other, and they can't see where they're pointing at. So you could just start asking questions like, can you point me where Spain is? And instantly and visually see how students are doing, a form of visual assessment. The Learning Analytics Dashboard, which I touched base on, gives you a bird's eye view. You don't have to remember everything. The Learning Analytics Dashboard will do it for you. It's your second brain inside of the virtual class. And with that, you can see what the emojis are like over time. You don't have to remember was there a particular slide that students raised their hand. And you can actually see if there are students who are struggling. So if you had asked a couple questions and you wanted to kind of gauge, is there any students that are kind of hiding there? Well, you would see them right away. And I always like to say, imagine you said to Sam, hey, Sam, it's really important that you participate. Don't worry if you get the questions wrong. It's how you learn. I would imagine Sam would be there going, what? How is it possible the teacher is aware of me? I'm not sharing my webcam. And that's because we don't rely on webcams. We give you the visibility, and that's the difference between us and the video conferencing system. We know what you're trying to do, and we are your second brain to help you do it. Smart slides, this is what we built in a while back. We just pick the content up into memory anyway for screen readers. We can pretty much pick out if you have a poll question and give you one button to do it. And when you do the polls in BigBlueButton, the results come back live, as they should. We have emojis now, so we added the emoji bar. This was since last year, so you can get some emoji love from the students. There's a built-in multi-user collaborative text notes. This is based on Etherpad, so you can use this. You can lock it down as well. You can use it for an agenda, but you can get students to collaborate, and in breakout rooms as well. And in breakout rooms, you can have BigBlueButton bring the content back to the main room. This was a feature that was asked a while back. So if you have students working on something and you want them to do something with the whiteboard, you can have BigBlueButton automatically bring that back for you in the main room. Same thing with the shared notes. And we think it's important for you to see what's going on in the breakout rooms. With BigBlueButton, you could literally open them up in their own tabs, and you can monitor the breakout rooms at the speed of switching tabs. Coming soon, there's some other capabilities. Actually, this summer, to be able to lock students from doing individually private or lock them from doing chat. And I believe there's actually the ability, I might have the slide here. Yes, there was the ability to set the default presentation for breakout rooms. This is another frequently asked capability that teachers have had. Yes, and there's the private chat as well. I think I duplicated the slide. Okay, and there's one more too. Some schools have asked us for the ability to pass a custom background image for like webcams. And so there'll be a parameter that you'll be able to pass along. It's always good when an educational organization can personalize a learning experience. And I like this one. All right, let me talk about BigBlueButton, and then I'm going to talk about the roadmap ahead. So BigBlueButton 3.0, the beta is coming soon. I'm sure as you watch this, we'll have it out. But it is one of the most, or I would say by far, the most ambitious release ever. So we have been working on BigBlueButton for 16 years, and the amount of work and effort that has gone into this release far eclipses anything we've done before. So a couple highlights. We're building TL Draw 2.0 into the product. And just to be clear, we're building the one that was released in December 2023 before it switched to a different license. But that version has everything we need. And so it has highlighter tool, shapes, and it's laying the foundation for infinite whiteboard as well. It's just a screenshot here. We're zoomed out, the slide is up here, and you're now writing on the left-hand side, and the students can follow you around. Kurt will be talking about this in his presentation. I encourage you to check it out. But TL Draw is amazing, and we are very fortunate to build on such an amazing product. World-class whiteboard. Thanks to MConf, the dialogues for sharing webcam got a lot of cleaned up and very much simplified. So small things, but these small things are all add up. Another small thing is a design to easily set yourself away. And this is a design of it. It currently lives in the emoji bar. I think we're going to move it to a different place. But again, once you click that, it'll automatically turn off your webcams and microphone and set you to away. And perhaps the thing that everybody wanted the most, give me a leave button. Please, give me a leave button. Well, you're going to get a leave button in 3.0. And it makes it very clear to how people exit the session. Another small thing, you'll always be able to get the welcome message here. You'll be able to choose show welcome message. So as it scrolls up now, you don't have to go search for it. And the polls look way much better in BigBlueButton 3.0. So they're actually drawn as polls. And again, that was the work that first landed in the chat. And the poll questions you'll see in 3.0, they'll be drawn with like a SVGA graphics. And simplified audio as well. So I know we love this dialogue, the microphone listen only choice, that actually will go away as well. When you join BigBlueButton, it will ask you for permission. if needed, to share your microphone, but you will just join muted by default. And then when you unmute, if you don't have that permission, it will ask you. And this will actually mean that we're transparently switching back and forth between under the hood, kind of a listen-only stream and a two-way audio stream. All right, that's kind of all the visual stuff that you'll see. There'll be a little bit more, but that's the main visual stuff. But man, what's under the hood is even more impressive. So GraphQL and Hasura, we started this project over a year ago. And the idea was Meteor and MongoDB were holding us back for scalability. It was holding us back because we were tied to Ubuntu 2004. So we said, I think we can do this a better way. This was not a small undertaking, but the outcome of this is going to allow us to scale to more than 250 users in a session. There's a talk on this from Tiago on the testing that we're doing. We're running a lot of tests with live clients to see what the actual scaling is. BBB SFU recorder, that's going to replace Corrento. So Corrento also was holding us back. Much lighter process to record the WebRTC streams for the recordings. And this will, both of those will get us to running on Ubuntu 2204, and not a big step in a future update to go to 2404. I already talked about TL Draw. We have custom shapes, performance improvements, and infinite whiteboard. That will be behind a flag in 3.0. It will become standard in 3.1. That means you can turn on infinite whiteboard and try it out. It just may not record that moment, that phase that you use it. And LiveKit. This has emerged as like the next really good platform for WebRTC-based audio and video. So we're going to put this into version 3. It also will be behind a flag with the intent that it becomes default. But the goal is to get best of class audio and video. Like, you know, many large companies are basing themselves now on LiveKit. It's open source and it looks like we've already been doing some prototypes, so you will have a chance to try this out shortly. Oh yeah, and there's one more thing that we're doing, and that is going to turn on superpowers, I think, for people who are wanting to build on top of BigBlueButton, and that is plugins. So just like Moodle is where it is today because it has this rich ecosystem of plugins. There are over 2,000 plugins now in the Moodle database. I'm not saying we're going to get that much, but what it meant was the Moodle core, people didn't have to go in and modify the core to extend it, which is the world we live in today with version 2.7, but with version 3, some of the capabilities that we're doing are now actually being built in as plugins. That means the core is not changing in those capabilities, and those capabilities can be developed in parallel, updated in parallel, and anybody in the world can build them. So it is going to make it possible to extend BigBlueButton in ways that would take us a lot of effort at the core, but people can go into the direction of where they want it to be used. And then over time, the core will get a little more capable, but a lot of the capabilities that we want to build, we ourselves as core developers are going to look at building them first as plugins if we can, because that means we can accelerate faster the innovation and the providing the best learning experience for the teachers and students. All right. Again, a couple examples. This was one that was done at the Developer Summit in Brazil. Tiago sat down and said, I want to do a QR code to let people join the session. He wrote a plugin to do it. Took him a couple hours. And then you can now like point your phone at it and it'll join you into the session. This is where we'd like to get to where you could use BigBlueButton for, let's say, hybrid classrooms or like an in-classroom clicker and just bring up a very limited client. We thought about this in the past, but now with plugins, we have the means to do it. And the select random user, this is going to be available as a plugin so that we can do things like maybe you want to skip the moderators or do, forget the last viewers. Things that would just make the core heavier. If we put it in, we can do it as a plugin. Again, another big shout out to MConf. A lot of the work that they had done to customize BigBlueButton for themselves, they are contributing back to the open source as plugins. It's going to enable them to use the core of BigBlueButton and add their value. And here's a subset of plugins that they're working on and contributing back. It's awesome. All right, so that is 3.0. There is lots of goodness coming out. By the time you watch this video, it's probably out in beta, and we ask you to help us teach it and make it the best, help us test it and make it the best release ever. But let's look ahead. So I wanted to talk about roadmap. So anytime we plan and think about things, the features in that, we need a framework to kind of understand what are the most important things for us to focus on. So we created this a while back as these are the steps that an instructor has to go through to deliver a virtual class. Like you have to plan it, create engaging content during the live class, manage it, build relationships, use a mix of technology, of teaching methods, do active learning, and then assess it and give feedback. And when it's done, review and reflect. So anything that we come up with should fall into one of those areas. So what I did for this was I kind of looked at, okay, well, I think there are some obvious things that we can do. Some of them we're working on, some of them are still for the future. But let's take a look at where this framework guides us. So certainly AI to generate content, and content that is really connected for smart slides, so that there's like one button, BigBlueButton. We'd like to get actionable information from the LMS into BigBlueButton, so that if there's something about the student that the LMS knows, you as the instructor don't need to go manually find it for each class. The system should be working closer together and help save you time by pointing out that, hey, maybe there's a student that's like missed the last 2 assignments. During the live session, you could imagine more personalized active learning. So instead of one activity at one level for the class, maybe there's the same activity is at different levels, or they're like 3 different activities. And depending on how you've done so far in the class, you start off with an easier one and gradually move up. Like these things are possible when you have the analytics to do it and the ability to generate content. More visibility in what students are doing during the activities. This is like multi-user whiteboard and whiteboard vision. I have some more thoughts about this. Give feedback, more insight to learning activities over multiple sessions. This could be analytics. This could be a continuous classroom. And definitely, once the recording is created, you want to be able to give students the ability to go back and review the content easily in a way that helps them recall and maybe apply their knowledge. Again, studies have shown that if you just read or underline or highlight, these are very ineffective ways of learning. There's an excellent book called Make It Stick. The way more effective ways is active recall and spaced repetition. All right, so let's give this example. So I just went to Claude before this and I said, give me quiz, polling questions, each with 4 possible answers and only 1 correct, that would test students' understanding of how volcanoes work for grade 7. So they came up with 5 questions, and I just took one of them and I put them into a slide. I had AI generate an image for me, and of course, BigBlueButton picks it up as a poll question. It is not a big step to do all that. What I just told you I manually did, to do that automatically. So we are coming to a world like today, anybody doing curriculum development is undoubtedly using AI. It'll save you time. But if you can take those questions into BigBlueButton, have them available with 1 click, AI can save time for that as well. So we're not replacing learning here. We're saving time for more active learning with feedback. The teacher will get the feedback live to see our students following along. Actionable information from Canvas or from your LMS. The idea that there's 2 assignments missing for a student, that's already in the LMS. It should be visible to you as the instructor. Like help you as the instructor know if there's a student that might be struggling, so you could better tailor the information towards that. You don't have to remember this cognitively. The information's there in the LMS. It should be there for you inside the virtual class. When I've shown this example for 2 years now, and we are very close to building it with the sub plugin capability in Moodle and the plugin capability in BigBlueButton. When my belief is when educators start to use this, if someone goes to them and says, we would like you to move to a system that doesn't have this capability, they would be like, why would you make it harder for me to understand students that are struggling? Like, this is what I need to teach more effectively. And this is what we're building. Built-in activities, H5P. This was something we started in Brazil at the Developer Summit, and we are all in. We are looking at taking H5P and taking it what would be an asynchronous activity and making it synchronous. So I'll have a little video, which I'll play for you here, of a live demo I did 2 days ago. So that's a link there. I put it in the presentation or the chat, so people later on seeing the recording could see it. Yes, the idea would be is that we want to be able to get that information back to the gradebook, whether it's Canvas, whether it's Moodle, whether it's Schoology or others. That is possible because of the deep integration we have. So I'm now in the phase of things that I believe if we look at the framework, where are the opportunities for us to save the instructor time, more active learning, more feedback. This is one of them. So this is on our roadmap. Another thing is giving more visibility in what students are doing, whiteboard vision. I have shown this as well for, I think, over 2 years now, and we are getting close. The TL Draw 2.0 is laying the foundation for us to do this. And again, when we do this, when we provide educators the ability to see, let's say there's 12 students and see each student's activities, why would you ever go to a system that prevents you from doing that? So I think this is where virtual classrooms are headed towards, and this is where we are as well. The other way I like to say it is like if you look at what a video conferencing system or even BigBlueButton does today, this is not the pinnacle of what a virtual classroom is possible to provide. There is more ahead, and man, we are working hard to get there. Another thing which we have talked about in the project, which is kind of, once we get it, is the concept of a persistent virtual class, or what we call the continuous classroom. So here the example is, imagine 1 week you were doing some activities, and then 1 week later you came back in and everything was still there where you left off. Okay, there are technical problems to solve, but in the context of teaching, this is actually really good and helpful. Like maybe you want a clean slate, or maybe you do want to pick up where you left off. We want to be able to give you, the educator, the choice. The other item there, the last item I had on the list was, could we do more with the recordings? And of course we can. The recordings contain what was captured during the session. Activate Learning, when they talked about students using BigBlueButton, are scoring a full grade point higher than in the physical classroom. Of course, one of the reasons why is there are recordings of what's there that you can go back and refer to. But again, as I said earlier, just watching something, students may think that is learning, but again, the research shows that rereading or just watching or underlining or highlighting are not as effective as recall and spaced repetition. So we do know what happened during the class. We have all the text, we have the audio, we have the chat. We could run that through a language model. We could come up with a really nice summary, but even more important, we could give the students ways to periodically recall the content, like flashcards, or do a quiz, or watch a video summary, or maybe you go to the discussion forum in the LMS. All of these things will help you learn. And that's the goal, is to take the content that we have and find ways that effectively help you learn. And there's much UI work underway. I will share, Bruno, in the BigBlueButton World Summits, we always have the UI presentation, the last presentation, the closer. So I won't take anything away, but a lot of work is going in to improve the UI. This release coming up, a lot of stuff under the hood, plugin architecture, biggest swing we ever took ever. And it lays the foundation for us to do so much more and as well improve the UI. All right, I'm nearing the end. This is one way I've been thinking about BigBlueButton recently in the last couple of months. And there is a spectrum of different types of collaboration that go on in any educational organization. We have focused BigBlueButton on the virtual class. And in doing so, we have to build a lot of capabilities in. But if I take you back for a moment over to this left-hand side, perhaps the simplest type of interaction that you could do is, imagine you're in a class and you just want students to, in the physical class, to interact with them. Now you could distribute clickers, or you could have them go to some website that does polling, but BigBlueButton can do polling and we can do chat. If it was really easy for you to get students into that mode, BigBlueButton could really cover this use case. Like we do a lot more. This only requires very simple capabilities, of which we have. So that's one use case. If you go to the next use case and you build on top of it, so you have polling and chat, if you actually wanted to do like a one-on-one session with somebody and all you want to do is talk, then you would need audio, video, and maybe screen share as well. So this is like the video collaboration. Well, BigBlueButton does this as well. if it was adapted or the UI was simplified for it, sort of hiding capabilities you don't need, it could address this use case very well. Now, if you take all those features and go to the next level, you have what is really many people coming together for the purposes of a meeting, right? So when I showed that diagram a while back, and there was like what a virtual class is and what a meeting is, well, BigBlueButton wraps its arms around what a meeting is. Like, it has those capabilities. So here, what would you do in a meeting? You would need private chat, emojis, shared notes, external video, closed captions, timer. This is to collaborate. But you actually need a couple other things: calendar integration, smart meeting layout, so that you don't have to like adjust the layout. If you minimize it, it minimizes for everybody. You don't need a concept of a single presenter, and persistent sessions would be really nice. So this guides us in terms of like, hey, if we get persistent sessions and there is work underway to make the presentation layout basically just automatically adjust, that's this one. And there is work underway to say, maybe we don't have a presenter. Anybody can become presenter. And I would love if someone in the community stepped up and said, we're going to do a calendar integration. We'll do it for Google Meet. We'll do it for Google. We'll do it for Microsoft. It's been done by other people. And all we need is a really good calendar integration that stands right there with BigBlueButton. And these pieces are not hard to build. And once they fall into place, I would argue that, hey, in an educational institution, if you're using one tool for this and you have BigBlueButton and you really love it, you could use BigBlueButton for more use cases. It doesn't take away from the virtual classroom component, but it does allow us to position the product as covering a more of a spectrum of collaboration. The next one, which I just enabled collaboration, is you're really not just talking and maybe doing some notes. You're going to be doing things together. You're going to go to breakout rooms together. You're going to use the multi-user whiteboard together. Like, this is a collaborative environment. Of course, we have those capabilities as well. And then you get to the requirements for a virtual class. You want to be able to lock things down. You want to have like one-click activities. You want to be able to share your camera's content. You want to have analytics that you could see who's struggling without depending on the webcams. You want to have the deep integrations. You want to have LTI. You want to have XAPI, the Experience API, which we did this last year with the help of FunMOOC, another organization in France. That is now in for BigBlueButton 2.7, and you can hook it up to Learning Record Store. And for the future, well, there are things that I have already covered, like plugin architecture. Let's give developers superpowers to integrate and build on top of BigBlueButton. Infinite Whiteboard. Let's make it possible to collaborate in a way that if you've used Jamboard or others before, it's built into BigBlueButton. You need less reason to go to other products. There's less bleeding of student data. The platform should understand what you're needing to do, and the platform should help you do that. And in doing that, provide you analytics and insight. And the breakout vision, which is kind of whiteboard vision as well. It's the ability to have you, the educator, have visibility in students as they work on something, multiple different activities, and that insight can guide you into who may be struggling and give them feedback in the moment. That feedback puts them at the upper end of Zavosky's zone of proximal development, where they are able to achieve the most efficient learning with help from others. And we want you to be able to give them that help. All right, in summary, I answered the question, what is BigBlueButton? And I would actually say BigBlueButton is 5 things. It is a methodology, some of which I've gone over earlier, for teaching effective virtual classes. It is not talk to the screen. It is structured classes, scaffolding of content, getting students to work on things. You learn by doing, not by watching. It is a platform, that's the technology that understands what your goals are. The goal of the virtual classroom is not to meet, it is to learn. And we help you achieve those goals. The product is designed to help you achieve those goals. It is a deep integration with the learning management system to support those goals. A virtual classroom does not occur in isolation. There is a front end, a tutoring website, a LMS, other applications that we are built into that could share information inside of BigBlueButton to aid the instructor or the educator and share information back. BigBlueButton is a roadmap, which I've been sharing here, which is based on not just, hey, these would be really good ideas. No, we broke down what are the components of an effective virtual class. We broke down what teachers have to do to deliver that. And then we asked ourselves, how can we help the teacher at various phases? save time, more active learning, more feedback. And maybe most importantly, because we're open source, BigBlueButton is a global community. And we are working together to accelerate towards that vision. And that vision is one that increasingly enables students to have the most effective experience learning in a virtual class, and the teachers the tools to deliver it. And I'll make one comment as well about AI. AI is supportive, but I think with all the things that AI does in terms of maybe short-circuiting the homework assignments and that, the highest quality interaction that a student can have in learning is with a live person. Humans learn best from humans. That road leads to the class, the physical class or the virtual class, becoming really important for the instructor to get a sense of where students are in their learning journey and help them go forward. So I think that the growth of virtual classrooms is only going to continue. I think the importance of virtual classrooms will elevate as AI sort of short circuits some other areas that traditional learning has relied upon. And I think the platform that delivers the best experience for the teachers and students is going to be the one that wins. And we're in it to win. Thank you, everybody, for a chance. I have not focused at all on the chat. I'm going to spend some moments here reading through. And if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or just type them in the chat.
Hi, Fred. The picture of your camera, I also wrote this in the chat, is very, very good. Is this something new we will get also?
No, it's not. This is the latest version of 2.7, and it's going to get any better. So it's only going to get better. If you like what you see
Yeah, I
today,
installed it, but I had no video conference. Okay, so that's the reason. Okay. Good, thanks.
So Darren, we're trying to overcome limitations of sharing system audio and sharing full screen on Mac OS. Are there plans to increase capability with Mac OS and Safari browser? The screen sharing is actually done at the browser level. So BigBlueButton turns to the left and asks the browser, can you give me access to the screen? And the browser says yes. And the browser says, I will give you access to a video stream as well. So I believe these things will probably get solved over time. Currently, I would suggest if you're trying to share audio from something, if you can get it into a web page, of which most things are, the audio will come through when you use Chrome. But yeah, that's still a challenge.
I have a question. It is Orhan Albayrak. Do you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
First of all, thank you very much. It was a very nice and great presentation. I am a little bit new about the open system generally. So is it possible to send us this presentation, because I would look at it again and try to understand a little bit more. So just asking.
Totally. All of these presentations for the BigBlueButton World are recorded. They'll be available on YouTube shortly after the conference is over.
Okay.
Please share it and join our community. You can join our developer mailing list. You can join our user mailing list. You can interact with others in the community. I believe there's over 4,000 people now on the developer mailing list and over 2,100 people on the user mailing list. These are, the user mailing list is for users of BigBlueButton. Of course, the developers for developers. We're a very welcoming community, and we try to support people when they join us. All right, we're nearing the end. I have time for one more question. And of course, you can always find me online. But if anyone has any other questions, I'd be happy to answer it. We do have bi-weekly developer calls as well. If you join the BigBlueButton developer mailing list, you'll see the posts go out. And we do as twice a year, we get together for developer conferences. This is usually the core people from the project getting together, but anybody in the world can participate. I mentioned there are 60 plus languages now that BigBlueButton has been localized into, with full support for right to left. I only speak one. That is our community that has stepped up. So around the world, BigBlueButton has been localized. The tagline we have for the project, you might see it everywhere, or some places, BigBlueButton is the world's virtual classroom. It is built for the world, by the world, and we couldn't do it without contributions from people around the world. And that is our global community. I think that's a good place to stop. I thank everybody for coming out. It's been a pleasure to share with you what we've been doing so far on Big Blue Button. This has been probably the most intense year of development. We're really looking forward to getting out the version of Big Blue Button 3.0 into everyone's hands. We're extremely proud of it, but we can only do it with your help. Help us test it, help us document it, help us spread it, give feedback to us, and together we can reach our goal of building the world's most effective virtual classroom. Thank you.